Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to make a simple system for an inventory that'll let you run around and pick up items from the ground and store them in your inventory like a bag or backpack maybe your character has. And then you can also throw these back on the ground. Maybe you decide you're done with these or you need to get rid of some stuff, free up some space or some weight. You can throw these items back on the ground like this. All right, so I'll show you how to get started here. All right, I'm going to start off here with a new first-person template project, and what I'll do first is make my parent class for pickup items. So I'll make a new blueprint actor called b_pickup item parent, and I'll open that up, and I want to add a couple things here. I'm going to add a static mesh component, and I'll select the default scene route here and add a sphere collision, and I'm going to call this the overlap sphere. And I just want to make one change here in the details. I'm going to find under collision, the collision presets here, I'm going to change this to custom, and I'm just going to select overlap for everything. So I don't want it to block anything, I just want it to overlap only. And that's fine for now, so I'm going to close that. Next thing I'll do is make our inventory widgets. So I'll right click here and make a new user interface widget blueprint, a user widget. I'll call this w_inventory. All right, and for this one, I'm going to start off with a canvas panel. I'll drag that down here. And what I want to add here is, first of all, a border. And I'll drag that on and maybe size it up something like this just in the corner here. And I'm going to change the brush color here. I'll just actually set this to maybe sort of a medium gray and set the alpha here to maybe like 0.3. Okay. And then what I'm going to do here is add a wrap box. And I'm not going to drop it in the border here, I'm just going to add it to the canvas panel and size it up just a bit smaller than the wrap box and drag it over top like this. Okay, and I'll also add a text element, same thing, I'm going to drag that onto the canvas panel. I'll just set the text here to say inventory, and I'll make it a bit smaller here, maybe say 18, and I'll drag this down right here like this. Okay, and the only thing I have to do here is select my wrap box and say is variable, and we'll name this the inventory, let's say the inventory box. Okay, I'll compile and close. Now I'm going to make the widget that will represent each of the items we're going to pick up. So I'm going to make another user interface widget blueprint, user widget, and I'll call this w_pickup item. Okay, and for this one, I'm going to set the screen size here to custom, and 100 by 100 is fine. I'm going to add an overlay to start with. All right, and I'm going to also add a button, drag that into my overlay. And I'll select the button here and I'll say we want that to fill horizontally and vertically. And I'll change the name here. I'm going to call this item button. All right, and next I'll add an image and I'll drag that into the button. And we'll say fill horizontally and vertically. And I'll select my, find our padding here. I'm going to say padding for this can be just 2, and for the item button, we'll set the padding as well here to 2 and 2. We don't need these wide edges here. All right, and for the image, I'm going to change the name here to item icon. All right, and I'm also going to add a text element here. I'm going to drag that into my overlay, and I'm going to change the color, let's see here, I want to change the text color to black. And we'll say for the text itself here, I'm going to set it to 99. And the size, let's say maybe 16. And I want to say for the vertical alignment, we'll say bottom align. So I'll put it in this bottom corner here. And this is going to be the stack size for if you have more than one of the same item in your inventory and it's allowed to stack. Okay, so I'll set that to is variable, and I'm going to change the name to stack size text. All right, and so I'm going to go now to the event graph for this widget and add another variable here, and I'm going to call it item class. And I'm going to change the variable type here, and I'm going to set it to an actor, and I'm going to set it to an actor class reference. Okay, and I'm going to add two more variables here. I'm going to call this one current stack, and I'll set that to an integer. And one more called max stack, also an integer. Okay, that's good for now. I'll compile and close that. Okay, next I'm going to make an interface that we're going to use to communicate between pickup items and our first-person character or other actors. Okay, so I'm going to right-click here, Blueprints, Blueprint Interface, and we'll call this pickup item underscore interface. All right, and I'll start off by making a new function here called pickup item. And I'm going to add some inputs here. The first one will say item class, and I'll set that again to an actor class reference. And another input here will say item icon. And this time I'm going to select texture 2D. Just the object reference. And one more input here, this will be stack amount. And we'll set that to integer. All right, and next I'll add another function here. We'll call this one drop item. And for the inputs here, I'll add item class, and we'll set that to actor class reference. And okay, I'll compile and close that for now. And what I want to do next is I want to get our inventory widget to display on the screen when we start playing. So I'm going to go to my first person folder here and the blueprints folder and open up the first person character blueprint. All right, and I'll find an empty spot here on the blueprint, and I'm just going to right click and say begin play. We'll get the event begin play, and I'll drag from that and go create widget, and I'll find our W underscore inventory widget, and I want to promote that to a variable. We'll call this our inventory widget. All right, and I'll drag from here and say add to viewport. And I also want to be able to use our mouse. By default, the mouse is hidden and it's used just for moving around your character, for looking around. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click and say get player controller. And I'll drag from that and say set input mode game and UI. And I'm also going to drag here from player controller and say set show mouse cursor. And I'll select that to be true. And now when we play the game, we'll have our mouse showing, and you have to hold right click to use it as a look around. Otherwise, you move your cursor and you can click on things on the screen. So let's just give that a quick try here. All right, and so we've got our inventory box on the screen here. The background's a little bit light. I'm going to make that just a little bit darker here. Okay, so that's a little better. Now we need to be able to pick up some items and add some widgets to our inventory. So what I'm going to do next here is make a couple of pickup items. And what I've got here is a medical kit model and a potion bottle. And so I'll start off here by making our potion bottle. And so what I'll do is just right click my pickup item parent, and I'll say create a child blueprint class. And I'll call this B underscore potion. Let's call this health potion pickup. All right, and for the static mesh here, I'll find my bottle here, SM potion bottle. All right, and I'll set the materials here. Let's set the material to green potion. And I've already got the health label on here. So pretty well all set. The overlap sphere is unfortunately not really overlapping the mesh, because the mesh base starts at the center here, and the overlap sphere has the center as is from the center, not the base. So what I'm going to do real quick here is open up the pickup item parent, go to the viewport, and we'll select the overlap sphere, and I'm just going to drag it up. Let's say 20. And we'll take a look at that in the health potion pickup, and that looks better. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make one more pickup item here. So I'll just take this one and duplicate it, and we'll call this B underscore medical kit pickup. All right, and for this one, I'll just change the static mesh here to the medical kit. And I think I need to rotate this just a little bit. There we go. Okay, and I'll scale it down. Maybe that's a little bit large. We'll say 0.6, 0.6, 0.6. All right. And the overlap sphere for this one maybe could be just a little bit larger. So here what I'll do is center this. Let's see, we'll turn off the grid, center it a little bit better. And I'll select the sphere, and I'll change the radius maybe to 50. All right, maybe 40 actually. Yeah, that seems fine. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is go to my pickup item parent blueprint, and I want to add a couple of variables here. And we'll start with item class, and we'll set that to an actor class reference. And I'm going to set this to instance editable by selecting this little eyeball here, or you can check up here, instance editable. And I'm going to add another variable called item icon, and I'll set that to a texture 2D object reference. And one more variable here called stack size, and that's going to be an integer. And I'm going to make both of those also instance editable. So all three of these are instance editable. And so now what I can do is on my health potion pickup, select the root here, and I can find the item class, item icon, and stack size. So the item class here, I can set this to health potion pickup. Stack size, let's say we want to be able to stack these up to 5 at a time. And now item icon. So at this point, what I'm going to do is make a couple of icons for these pickups. And so what I'm going to do is something very simple. Obviously, you can make icons in any number of ways, but I'm just going to drag one out here onto my grid, and I'll press G, and then I'm just going to use Windows key, Shift, and S, and we'll take a screenshot. Okay, and then I'm going to open up GIMP. GIMP is, of course, free software. Anybody can download this. And I'll paste that image into here. And I'll just say image, scale image, 256. And I'll unlock this so I can set it to 256 in both dimensions. It's going to stretch it maybe a little bit. I didn't take a perfectly square screenshot. That's no problem. What I want to do here is I'm just going to grab my ellipse select tool and do something like this with a circle selection around here. I'm going to go to Edit, Stroke Selection, and I'm just going to use solid color, line width 10, and I've got a bright green color here set as my foreground color. I'll hit Stroke, and next I'm going to say go to Select, go to Feather, and I'll feather the selection by 15. And now I'm going to use Control C and Control Shift V. And now I've got this icon that's sort of a basic icon for my MetaKit pickup. So I'll export this to my desktop. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing again here for the potion. So I'll just delete that, drop the potion here. We'll turn this around, and I'll press G and Shift, Windows key S, take a screenshot. I'll try to make it as square as I can here. Maybe take another one. That's better. Okay, and back to GIMP. We'll paste it, and we'll do the same steps again here. All right, and so now I'll just import those two icons into the content browser here. I'll just drag those from the desktop. All right, and back in my health potion pickup blueprint here, I can now set item icon and find that health potion icon. And in the medical kit pickup blueprint, we'll set all of these here, actually, the item class to be the medical kit pickup, and the item icon, medical kit icon, and stack size, let's say just one. These are pretty big. You can't really stack these. Let's say you only have one per slot. All right. One more thing I'm going to do here for these pickups is set these to simulate physics. So I'm going to grab the static mesh here, find simulate physics, and I'll turn that on for both of these. All right. And on the pickup item parent, what I'm going to do is select the static mesh, and I'm going to find under the physics category here constraints, and we're going to lock the rotation on the X and the Y dimension, and set maybe the let's see here, I'll search for the max angular velocity. And so I want to set this to maybe something like 360, I believe that's degrees per second. So I don't want these items to be able to spin out of control. I just want it to be able to spin a little bit and not rotate in the X and Y dimensions. They're just going to be able to spin in the Z dimension. All right, so I'll compile that, and I'll close these for now. My health potion pickup and my medical kit pickup. Okay, so now we want to be able to walk over these items and pick them up into our inventory. So what I'm going to do here is open up the first person character blueprint. And I'm going to start off by going to class settings, and we're going to add that interface that we created, the pickup item interface. Now under interfaces over here, I can find that drop item and pick up item function that we defined. And we'll start off with pick up item here. I'll just double click that. And what I want to do is we want to send this message to the character when they overlap the pickup item. So in pickup item parent, what I'm going to do is on the event graph, we'll say on actor begin overlap, we'll say from other actor does implement interface. And we'll see if that actor implements the pickup item interface. And I'll make a branch from here. And if they do implement the interface, then we want to make sure that it's not another pickup item. So if a pickup item overlaps another pickup item, maybe you drop one on another one, we don't want this event to happen. So we're going to check for that. We'll say other actor get class. And then from the get class value, I can say class is child of. And we'll see if it's a child of b underscore pickup item parent. And I'll get another branch here. All right. Oops. Okay. And so if it's true that it implements the interface, but false that it's not another pickup item, then we're going to go ahead and send the interface message. So I'll just drag again from other actor here, and I'll type in pickup item. And we'll plug that in from false. And the item class and icon and stack amount, I'm just going to drag in from right here from our variables. So we'll drag in item class, icon, and stack size. So now back to the first person character blueprint. When the first person character overlaps an item and receives that message, what we want to do is we want to check if we already have one of these on hand. Well, first we'll see if it's even a stackable item. So we'll grab stack amount, and we'll say greater than 1. All right. And if it's greater than 1, that means it can stack. And so we should check our existing inventory for if we already have it. So I'm going to grab this inventory widget reference, drag it in here, and we'll say get inventory box. And from that, I'm going to drag and say get children, get all children. And from the array return value, I'm going to get a for each loop with a break. All right. And so I'll plug this in from the true. And now I want to get information about the widget. And so I'm going to go back to my interface to create another function here real quick. We'll go open up the pickup item interface. And I'm going to add a function here called get pickup item data. And that's going to have some outputs. So the first output is going to be item class. And we'll set that to an actor class reference. All right, and the next output here is going to be current stack amount, and that's going to be an integer. And I'll make one more output here, and this is going to be the max stack amount, also an integer. Okay, and so what I want to do is in my inventory widgets, so I'm going to find my W pickup item, and I'm going to go to the event graph and class settings, and I'm going to add that same interface, the pickup item interface. Okay, and I'll compile here, And under interfaces now, I can select this get pickup item data. I'll double click that. And now I can return the item class and the current stack amount and the max stack amount. Okay, so I'll compile that and go back to the first person character blueprint, and we'll drag from each from the array element here, and we'll say get pickup item data. Okay, so now we can check the item class, and we can see if this is equal to the item class that we've just tried to pick up. And so we're going to see, do we already have one of these items in our inventory? All right, and if we have one, we want to see if we can in fact add to the stack. So now we need to check if the current stack amount and plus 1, because we're trying to pick one up, is that going to be less than or equal to the max stack amount? And get another branch here. All right. And if it is, if we can, then we want to add one to the stack. So what I need to do now is make one more interface function. So I'm going to go back to the pickup item interface. And I'll add a new function here called add pickup item to stack. All right, and I don't need any inputs or outputs for that one. What we're going to do is in the w_pickup item widget, I'm going to go back to the event graph here, and we'll right click and say add pickup item to stack. We'll make the event. And I'm just going to grab the current stack variable here, drag from that, and I'll say plus plus, so that'll increment that by 1. And then I also want to grab the stack size text. We'll drag that in here, and I'll say set text. And we'll drag on from the current stack integer to the text, and it'll make a conversion node here for us. Okay, and one more thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the design. I'm going to select the stack size text here, find visibility, and I'm going to change it to hidden. So it's hidden by default. And then back in the graph here, we'll say, grab our stack size text here and say set visibility. And we'll make it visible if we have increased the stack amount. So there's more than 1. So there will be no number visible if you just have 1. And if you have more than 1, it shows the number. Okay, so that's pretty much done. Now back in the first person character, we can go ahead and call add pickup item to stack when this returns true. So I'll just drag here from the array element, add pickup item to stack. All right, and I want to stop looping through this once we've added the item, once we've found an existing stack that will accept this item. We don't need to keep looping through the rest of our inventory. So we will loop around here to the break pin, and I'll just double click this so that we can reroute it a bit nicer here. I'll route it up top, maybe something like that. All right, and one more thing I'm going to do here actually before we go to the break pin is I'm going to add one more variable. We're going to call this is item added ? And we'll set that to true if we successfully found a spot to add the item to an existing stack. All right, So the next thing I'm going to do here is go back to the beginning of this function here. And now we're going to say, what if we don't have that item existing, or it doesn't stack in the first place? We need to add it a new widget to start with. So what we'll do here is from the false pin, we'll say create widget, and I'll select the W pickup item. And then we need to set a couple of the variables. So we're going to set the class, the item class, and we'll drag in item class here. We want to get the item icon and drag from that and say set the brush. All right. And for the brush, what we'll do here is grab the item icon pin here, and we'll say make brush from texture. Okay, and I'll set the width to 100 and the height to 100, and we'll plug that into the in brush pin here. Okay, then we'll grab from the return value of the widget here and say set max stack. And we'll drag in the stack amount here. All right, so with those three things set here, the item class, the item icon, and the max stack amount, we can go ahead and add this to our wrap box. So I'll grab the inventory widget reference here, drag from this and get the inventory box, that's our wrap box. And just drag from this and say add child to wrap box. And we'll plug this in here. And the child that we're trying to add is the widget that we just created here, the return value from the create widget node. All right. And that's pretty much it. So what we want to do also, though, is if we come off of the loop here, we want to check is item added to see if we actually added the item to an existing stack. And if we didn't, then we want to come around to the same logic here where we make the new widget. And so again, here I'll just route this a bit nicer. And what I want to do is actually collapse all of this into a function. So we'll just grab everything here. And I'll right click and say collapse to function. And I'll call this add item to inventory. All right, and we'll just clean this up a little bit here. Let's see. This A, we don't need. This actually comes from max stack here. And B, this actually comes from item class. So just because we've used them twice in the function, it's made a separate input. But we don't actually need those. So I'll delete A and delete B. And we'll change the name of this to item icon. All right. And that's pretty much it. And also for is item added, I want to make this a local variable. So I'm just going to go here and say local variables is item added question mark, and we will delete this and we'll use this one instead. Okay, so it might have been easier to just make this a function right from the get-go, but I kind of forgot, and so converted it afterwards here, made a little bit of a mess, and we cleaned it back up. So hopefully you're able to follow everything there, and that's basically it for this function. So I'm going to compile. Let's see here, add item to inventory. Oh, just need to remove these pins here. Compile. All right, and we're all set. All right, so with that done, the next thing I want to do is go back to my pickup item parent, and right after the pickup item message, basically we're going to destroy the actor. So if you've picked up the item, then the 3D model version of the item in the world is gone, and now you presumably have it in your bag or whatever. So we'll just drag from here and say destroy actor. All right, so let's give it a try here and see what we've got so far. I'll just see if I can pick up this bag and the health pot here. I'll just walk over top of them, and yeah, we've got them in our inventory. And let's check out the stacking function here. We'll just make a handful of these health pots here. I'll hold Alt and duplicate these, and we'll make a whole bunch here. And I'll make a couple extra medical kits here as well. All right, so looks like our stacking is working, but it was off by a little bit there. I think what happened is we need to set the initial stack size to 1. So I'll go to w_pickup_item, current stack, and the default value should be a 1. All right, we'll try that out again here. So I should have 1 bottle here, and then a second, and then a third. Yeah, so that's working now. And these don't stack at all. And this stacks up to 5, and then starts a new stack there. All right, perfect. So the next thing that I want to implement is I want to be able to click these and, well, let's have it just drop the item for now. So obviously using an item, you'd have to implement specifically to what items you have in your game, and that would be a game-specific implementation. But what I want to do is implement a way to drop these items back on the ground. Okay, so the next thing I'll do here is go to my pickup item widget, and I want to select the item button, and on clicked event here, I'm going to hit plus. And what we'll do is we'll use that drop item message that we set up in our interface. So I'll right click here and just say get player pawn. And we'll get the owning player pawn, and I'll drag from that and say drop item message. And the item class we'll drag in from here. And then what we want to do is deduct from our stack. So we want to check, we want to take our current stack, we'll get that and say minus minus to decrement that by 1. All right, and then after decrementing that by 1, we're going to check if it's equal to 0. And I'll get a branch here. And if it is, then there's no more of that item. And so we'll say remove from parent. And if it's not, then that means there's still some more of that item left. So we'll update the stack size text here. I'll drag that in, get that, and say set text, and plug that in from the false here, and the text is going to be the current stack, and that'll be converted to text from an integer. All right, and then what I want to do here is we want to see if the current stack, I'll just grab the current stack reference, Control D, and see if it's equal to just 1. And I'll get a branch here. And if it is equal to just 1, then I'm going to say stack size text. We'll duplicate that as well again here and say set visibility. And we'll set this back to hidden so that we don't see that number for just a single stack or a single unit. Okay, so that's pretty much done for the widget, and so now we just need to define this drop item. Once we send this message to the owning player pawn, which is our player character, we need to drop the item. So I'll go back to our first person character here, and I'll right click here and say drop event drop item, and what we'll do is we'll say spawn actor from class. And the class is going to be the item class, of course. And I'll split the pin here for the transform. And we want to spawn this pretty much in front of the player. So what I'm going to do is say get actor rotation. drag from that and say get forward vector. So that's going to be the forward direction from our actor, whatever way we're facing. And now I want to add some to this, so I'm going to say multiply. And what I want to do is I want to get the actor location, and we'll add some amount to that here, which is going to be from this forward vector. So I'll plug these in. I can right click here, convert pin, convert to a float, and we'll put it something like, say, 150 centimeters in front of the player. Okay, and so what I want to do now is we need to want to add an impulse to the item that you've dropped so that it sort of pushes it out in front of you. And so I'm going to use another interface message for that. I'm going to go back to the pickup item interface, and we'll add one more function here called push pickup item away. Okay, and no inputs or outputs. This is just strictly a message. And we'll go back to the first person character blueprint, drag from this return value and say push pickup item away. Okay, and I'm going to go back to the pickup item parent blueprint. And first thing I'll do here is go to class settings and add the same interface here, the pickup item interface, and I'll compile. And I'll find an empty spot here, right click and say push, and get this event push pickup item away. All right, and what I want to do is grab the static mesh reference, and I'm going to say add impulse. We'll use the add velocity change impulse at location. So that's going to add an impulse with no regard for the mass, essentially. And so what I want to do is for the location, we'll just say get actor location. But I'm not going to plug that in directly. We're going to add a little bit to it here. And what I'm going to do is for the impulse, I'm going to get the player camera manager, and I can drag from that and get the camera rotation. And I can drag from that and get a forward vector. So we're going to get a forward vector for whatever way the camera is facing. And so what I want to do for my impulse is I'm going to take that forward vector and I'm going to multiply it by some amount here. So I'll plug this into impulse and I'll convert this to a float. And I'll multiply this by something like 250. All right, and for the location here, what I'm going to do is use get actor location, but I'm going to add, and we'll plug this in here. All right, and what I want to add is an amount here from the forward vector of the camera. So we'll say multiplied by, plug this in down here. All right, and I just want to actually move over slightly. I want to move, say, 15 units over in the X dimension. And so that's actually just going to make it so that our impulse puts a small spin on the item as we toss it, so it doesn't just go straight out in front of the player. It's going to have a small angle, a small spin on it. All right, so let's give it a try here and see how it's working. I'll run around and pick some of these items up here, and then I'll just click here and see if I can put these back on the ground. All right, yep, perfect. And so that's pretty much working as intended. And of course, there's still a handful of improvements you would need to make here to this system. For example, there's no check for the number of slots, for example, in the inventory, or how big your bag might be, or anything like that. But of course, those would be game-specific implementations. And so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.